rainfall in some areas in the 1,000-year level. So we're talking anywhere from 25-year level, 100-year level, 500-year level, up to 1,000-year level. So it's really historic, unprecedented flooding. With that being said, our next step is recovery. And so we are already working with municipalities and our state agencies and our federal partners to determine whether or not we can ask for some federal assistance, whether it's federal highway assistance, FEMA assistance, or even the SBA. So that's at a very, very preliminary stage because we are still working to do the response part of things. But we are working for that very diligently, and we'll have more to follow on that as well. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Lockman of the Connecticut State Police.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Colonel Daniel Lockman, Commanding Officer of the State Police, and I'd like to provide you an update with the flooding that occurred within the state, specifically the town under Connecticut State Police jurisdiction that received the most impact, which was Oxford. The rainfall caused significant flooding and has resulted in both loss of life, damage to property, and has impacted the towns with a substantial number of road closures. Last night, the Connecticut State Police assisted with assets and in personnel in the rescue efforts to extract those who were stranded in Kettletown State Park, as well as Jackson Cove on Lake Zorb. The only access to rescue was by boat. The efforts were successful and they were evacuated to a shelter in Southbury. Yesterday, it was reported that 2 women were swept away by floodwaters in the town of Oxford. 2 individuals have been located today, and it is believed that the recoveries were of the individuals witnessed and reportedly swept away by floodwaters. At this difficult time, our thoughts were with the family of the deceased. I want to assure you that the State Police remains on scene as this remains an active and ongoing incident. Our canine search and rescue teams and a drone team are in the staged in the town of Oxford, and we are ready to help with the search and recovery efforts. Our aviation unit believes that there's a window this afternoon that they'll be able to get up in the air, and they will also be assisting. Oxford PD is operationally closed due to flooding. The building was successfully evacuated yesterday with no known injuries. Operations for Oxford PD have shifted to Troop A in Southbury. Any routine calls should be directed to Troop A at 203-267-2200. All emergency calls will still go to 911. Again, all emergency calls 911. State Police urge all motorists to check road conditions before driving to their destinations. Motorists should not drive over water or in roadways that are closed due to the water. Turn around and do not drown. I ask that everyone avoid the area if at all possible. And I'd like to thank our brother and sister partners at Demis, the local fire departments, local and municipal police departments, DOT, and the utility companies, among others. Any additional information will be released at cspnews.org. Thank you, and that's all the information I can share at this time. I'd like to introduce the Commissioner of the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Commissioner Ronell Higgins.
Thank you, Colonel. Good afternoon, everyone. As you've heard from both our State Emergency Management and Colonel Lockman of the Connecticut State Police, we have been and continue to work around the clock to make sure that resources are deployed. We are in constant communication with all of our partners at the local, state, and federal level. As you heard Deputy Commissioner Bergeron share, we are working with them closely on going from response to recovery. We know that working together is crucial, and that's what we do in this state. We work together with our partners all over the state on the local, the state, and the federal levels. I want to say I'm grateful for the partnerships of our emergency management teams. John Field, who's been doing an amazing job fielding calls around the clock. They have slept very little, very little. I also want to give a shout out to our first responders who supported those community members in the town of Oxford over the last 24 hours in their time of need. I just want to say that we will continue to work with all of our partners, as I said before, and as you've heard, on the federal, the state, and the local level, to make sure that we have a well thought out recovery stage. At this point in time, I'm going to bring up our Senator Blumenthal for remarks.
I think I'm supposed to follow.
Oh, okay.
I think we could have
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Ugalito.
Was it Commissioner Ugalito?
Yes.
Commissioner. Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you.
My name is Garrett Ucleo. I'm the Commissioner of Connecticut Department of Transportation. Just a quick update from our side. So just on the state road side, as of this moment, we have 27 reported closures of state roadways. That number may increase or decrease at any moment. So I encourage the public to check ctroads.org. That is where we constantly are updating the status of our state roadways. That does not include local roadways that may also be closed. I do want to thank our partner first responders as well as our partner local DPWs have been working all night to try and secure our infrastructure. A few important points is if there are cones or barrels or caution tape up, I strongly am encouraging everyone to adhere to those signs. Do not cross those roadways. You don't necessarily know what is underneath the pavement. The pavement could have been undermined. The bridges could have been impacted by scouring. That caution tape and those barrels are up for a reason. The other important point is that, there may be future closures that we identify as we are spending today inspecting everything. We've had several hundred crews out there looking at all of our infrastructure, inspecting above and below the surface of the roadway and the bridges to see what we may or may not be able to find. As water continues to move down our water courses, debris is in the waterways. That may clog our culverts and bridges, so that may also end up impacting more infrastructure. We're hopeful that is not the case, but it's just because today you may have passed over it, tomorrow it may end up being closed, so pay attention to those barrels and cones and caution tape. The other important thing is it's going to be a long recovery, so I know I'm going to be asked when we're going to open certain roads, and I am honestly saying we don't know. We need to fully inspect every single bridge that has been impacted and the pavement that has been impacted, and until we do that inspection, until we talk to our contractors, we do not know when those bridges or roadways will be reopened. So I'm asking for everyone's patience, and please be safe and avoid passing through those areas. Thank you.
Good morning. Katie Dykes here, Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. I want to provide an update on a few of the different operational impacts associated with DEEP's programs. First and foremost, yesterday I can share with our Bureau of Outdoor Recreation that we worked very closely with first responders to help evacuate nearly 50 campers who were stranded at the Kettletown campground when a bridge that is the only access point for that campground was washed away. So all of the campers were able to be evacuated. In total, we had 45 persons, including campers plus 3 DEEP staff who were at the campground, and they were safely transported through to the on shore safely through a boat rescue. The American Red Cross provided support. I want to especially thank the fire departments from Kent, Sherman, Southbury, Gaylordsville, and Middlesex, and Litchfield County coordinators who helped us, as well as our Deep Encon police, to conduct the boat rescue. All of the campers, our understanding, are local Connecticut residents. Kettletown State Park is closed, will be closed for the season. We know that because of the bridge being washed out, there are about 20 vehicles that remain at the campground, so we're working with National Guard on our near-term actions we can take to help recover those vehicles. But then we'll be assessing the damage to the bridge and providing updates going forward in terms of the future when that park plans for restoring the bridge for that park for next year. We have also Indian Well State Park is closed today as we're assessing damage and also safety at the water quality safety at the beach. And there was also an impact to Larkin Bridle Trail, which is about a 10-mile trail that was impacted by a washout. From the dam safety standpoint, DEEP staff have been continually engaged and coordinating with emergency responders and dam owners across the municipal, municipally owned dam, private owned dams, and our federal partners. With respect to the Stevenson Dam, that is owned by First Light, and is a hydroelectric dam on Lake Zor. The dam is structurally sound and is operating as designed. It's not a flood control dam, it's a hydroelectric dam. So the flows through the river have been passing through the dam at higher, as designed. There were some conflicting reports yesterday. They were circulating about the status of the dam, so I'll refer to the press release that First Light put out yesterday evening, just confirming the dam is structurally sound and is operating as planned. And I believe First Light has been providing some notifications today to households related to their flood management plan, just with respect to the declining water levels that we're seeing in the area. In addition, we know that there's some impacts potentially around the Kinneytown Dam and the adjacent Coe Pond Dam. We're working with FERC, which has the jurisdictional responsibility there. They're conducting an inspection. The issue that we're focused on there is any impacts to the structural integrity of the berm that supports the railroad line that is adjacent to that dam. So we'll be getting more data, and we can provide more updates as the day goes on. We have also, of course, through our dam safety program, we're monitoring the status and doing inspections and coordinating with owners of municipal dams and other private dams across the state that are high hazard dams or Class B significant hazard dams. We have a dam watch program that tracks any higher dams that are experiencing 25-year levels and above. And then we're coordinating, we have 2 crews working from DEEP today out doing inspections. We're also coordinating with private and municipal entities that are doing inspections of their dams. At this time, we don't see any imminent risk to any other dams that we've been monitoring. We will be working to provide for emergency permitting authorizations for any maintenance that's needed across any dams that may have been impacted. In addition, we are seeing reports of debris in the water, for example, oil tanks and so on and so forth, for example, that have been we're surveying by drone at Lake Zor, and we're also in touch with municipalities and others who may be seeing debris impacting marinas and so on downstream. We have our drone system working from our emergency response unit and in coordination with EPA Region 1 to assess any hazardous debris that may be in the water. We urge anyone, if you see anything or have questions or need response, to contact DEEP Dispatch at 860-424-3333. From a wastewater standpoint, we've been in touch with all of the wastewater treatment plants in the area. We're not seeing any damage to facilities. The operational impacts are consistent with what we would see during a high rainfall event, and we're providing any info with respect to sewer overflows through our normal reporting channels on Twitter. We are going to be working very closely with our colleagues at the Department of Transportation to provide for any emergency permitting authorizations needed so that they can expedite their work. And finally, I'll just note that, of course, this is a very historic and unprecedented rainfall event, and it's consistent with the accelerating impacts of climate change that we're experiencing. We have a strong track record here in the state through the Deep Climate Resilience Plan program of providing support to municipalities to help them plan for the types of infrastructure investments they need to better protect communities from, as best we can, from the impacts of these more extreme weather events. All told, over the last 3 years, Connecticut municipalities have received over $108 million of federal funding, FEMA BRIC funding. I really appreciate Senator Blumenthal's presence here and the support from our federal delegation, who have really helped us receive a robust share of federal funding that's available for these types of forward-looking infrastructure projects. We provided $8 million last year through the Deep Climate Resilience Fund to provide planning grants for municipalities to help design and conceive of the projects that they can apply to the federal government for, and that included about $700,000 in an award to Waterbury, and then another roughly $700,000 to the Naugatuck Valley COG to support planning for stormwater management projects that can help support this region. Next month, September, we will be opening up the next round of the Deep Climate Resilience Fund. We have $75 million in bond authorizations that are provided by the legislature, and we'll be putting that out for proposals from municipalities to support additional planning grants so that they can conceive of projects, but also for the first time providing match funds because the FEMA program requires a state or local match. So we'll be inviting municipalities to apply for those match funds so that they can pursue the next round of FEMA funding that will be opening up, we understand, in September. Sorry for that. There's a lot going on at DEEP, but thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Dykes. Before we move into our legislative partners, can we hear from First Selectman George Kessler?
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. This is a tragic and devastating day for Oxford. We have this morning recovered 2 bodies in Little River. They were both women, and they're, as I understand it, they're both Oxford residents. You know, I don't think our town is used to flash floods, and you know, a lot of people did the absolute wrong thing, which was try to drive through without knowing what was on the other side. But our prayers and thoughts go out to the families of these 2 women. Many of us who worked all day and night were struck by the power of the raging Little River. And you know, you think a name like Little River, it wouldn't be that bad. The Route 67, where many of you came up, was about 4 to 6 feet deep and very, very tumultuous current. And you can see the end results if you walk down Route 67 for a while, and you'll see that the road has been caved in and thrown apart. Additionally, of course, we had several businesses that were severely damaged, and many cars were totally wrecked. Yesterday's storm left people stranded. We rescued 30-plus people from Jackson Cove, which is our beach for Lake Zor, and they were there for a birthday party for a 2-year-old child, and that included also a child that was 5 months old. We were able to, at about 10 o'clock last night, evacuate everyone safely to Southbury by boat. The entrance to Jackson Cove has been totally washed out. I would like to thank our firefighters, our ambulance crews, Public Works Department, and police officers who worked all evening to keep us safe. And, you know, I was there, and I'm proud to have such men and women serve the town, and I am proud of our civic leaders who served the town with such dedication. We will overcome this in Oxford, and we will build better than ever because we're Oxford tough. Thank you.
Thank you, First Selectman. Senator Blumenthal?
I want to join First Selectman Temple in thanking the first responders, the police, firefighters, everyone who was out last night and who will continue to be out in the days ahead, and express my condolences to the loved ones of those 2 women who perished The first selectman said that Oxford isn't used to flash floods. Neither is Seymour or Newtown or Danbury. I just came from Seymour. The devastation there is heartbreaking and gut-churning, not just to the physical infrastructure, roads, bridges, and the cost to the municipality, but also to the small businesses who have suffered damage they cannot recover. They have no flood insurance. Because who would have thought the Little River would turn into a gushing torrent of destruction, which is what happened. That Little River became big. It became a huge gushing torrent of destruction, not only in Seymour, but here in Oxford. And we will seek federal help. Be absolutely sure we will seek federal aid. They're entitled to it. These communities have suffered an otherwise irreparable cost and damage, and there are programs available. The federal disaster declaration, which the governor, I'm told, is seeking, we've talked. We will provide every ounce of effort as a federal delegation, spare no energy or effort in seeking federal help from FEMA and other agencies that have an obligation, a responsibility to provide it, just as they aid Oklahoma in tornadoes or Florida in hurricanes. These flash floods here are equally destructive, not only to life and well-being, but also to property. But we need to address this issue as a longer-term challenge. Resilience against climate change is not just for the coastline. Flash floods and other disasters affect all of Connecticut. We all have a stake in planning and preparing. And that's why the federal government is providing those 50 or more billion dollars for the nation as a whole, and hundreds of millions, and I hope eventually billions of dollars for Connecticut to prepare, plan, and prevent the kind of damage that we saw here, the destruction that can wreck lives and businesses and tear apart communities. In the meantime, we will be working for resilience programs that invest in stronger infrastructure so that the Little River is contained when it threatens to overflow and do this kind of damage. There's no mystery here as to what is required to prevent these kinds of destructive disasters in the future. It is investment in the physical stuff that contains and constrains these natural disasters. I hope that folks see the great work that our agencies are going to be doing out there. When you see those cones, slow down, move over. It applies to the big highways, but also to 67 and 34 and 188, which are going to require a lot of work. You'll see those cones out there for a while. Slow down, move over. The guys working out there are doing a job under difficult circumstances, and the state police who are out there are also doing their job. So I know that towns have already started the recovery work, and we have begun drafting the papers that are necessary for us to support a disaster declaration. It will be targeted at the communities that have suffered losses, and it will be in partnership with the state and Governor Lamont, whom I'm pleased to introduce now.
Or we could hear from our local representatives, state representatives. Let's start with Representative Labriola.
As the local state representative here in Oxford, I live just right around the corner. I can tell you that the people of Oxford, we're hurting and our hearts are breaking. So we need a lot of help. And we're just really moved by the response by the governor, by our senator, the federal and state authorities, our agencies, our commissioners who are here, and their staff. And we're just so pleased and thankful for all the good work that they've already begun, because we need it. We need it now, and we're going to need it for the next few weeks and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Fruitman.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I also offer my condolences to the two Oxford residents who were tragically lost as a result of this historic flooding. Some people have called this a 1,000-year storm. I'll remind those of you that are old enough to remember that 69 years ago yesterday was the flood, the Great Flood of Waterbury, which put the downtown Waterbury and all of these valley towns underwater. I'm thrilled to see that we have our members of our federal delegation in Washington here. We have our governor here who interrupted his plans to be here in Oxford. I had a conversation with the governor. We have an agreement, if you will, that the state will provide through its agencies all of the resources we need to get Oxford back on its feet. Oxford got sucker punched yesterday and then taken out at the knees. Our infrastructure is broken. Our main highway that runs through this town is broken. We have a loss of life. We have a loss of businesses. We have people that have had significant damage to their homes. And we will need the full strength of the local government and the state government and the federal government to fix this beautiful town and get it back running in the right direction again. But thank you for being here. Thank you, Governor, for making this a priority today as well. Thank you.
Thank you. State Senator Tony Huang, I represent Newtown and Bethel. I want to thank the governor for interrupting his vacation to be here. It is important to have the leadership show. It does matter. My heart goes out to the people of Oxford and the loss of life, but this was a region that got hit in a devastating, sheer force in a show of Mother Nature's power. When we talk about the rainfall, I just checked. The average rainfall for Oxford and Newtown for the month of August is about 3.5 inches. We got over a range of 12 to 16 inches of rainfall this past weekend. It is a catastrophic amount of rain. No infrastructure could accommodate it. That being said, what I saw today in going out with law enforcement and first responders and getting firsthand view of the devastation is, it is not just what you see in the pictures. It is the infrastructure damage that we don't see. I sit on the Transportation Committee. I want to echo Commissioner Euclidis's reiteration that if there are blocks and if there are detours, respect it. Do not be sightseeing to get that photo or get that video, because the structure is unsound. It is truly, first and foremost, a public safety concern. I think the second point is the fact that we are going to need collaboration from all sectors of state, local, and federal. I'm so grateful, I'm going to repeat again, I'm grateful that the governor has made the effort to show his commitment to the residents that I represent. But I think the second point is also for us. I know I speak for Senator Berthel, Senator Kelly, and Senator Harding, who will speak afterwards, is we have reached out and asked for the federal government to declare this region a disaster area so we that can get the federal funds that are necessary for restoration of infrastructure and also be able to salvage and support those families and lives that have been disrupted. This is what we do as legislators. We are here to advocate for our community, but it can't be done without the agencies and the first responders and the people that make the entire system work. So I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you for having me here, Mr. Temple. Sure. And I think it's important. Every one of our towns need to work together and help the people in need. They need it now. Thank you.
Senator Hart.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Senator Wong had mentioned. This is a regional issue. Obviously, it seems like Oxford unfortunately got hit the worst. But the eastern end of my Senate district got hit pretty hard as well. And I appreciate the governor, I appreciate all the state agencies and the federal delegation for taking this with this serious nature they should be, and doing what we need to do to build back from this. Because a lot of this state, a big broad swath of western Connecticut, is going to have a lot to build back from, unfortunately. And with the help of state government and federal government, hopefully we can, and local government as well, we can work to build back for our constituents and our businesses. So thank you.
Yeah, so here we are again. And, as Eric said, yesterday, ironically, was the 69th anniversary of terrible flooding right here that devastated our towns. The Little River became a big river. And it is happening with more and more frequency. Just a year ago, a lot of us were there in the Connecticut River Valley, and they had been irrigating it due to severe drought. And there they were 2 weeks later, and the fields are all underwater. And it's just a reminder that we have to hang together at a time like this, especially given the tragedy. George, right here in your town in particular, those 2 women swept away. It's just incredible what happened there. And it reminds you a little bit of how we work together. I mean, starting here, George, and you working with your fellow first selectmen and mayors, the public works department, the first responders, the first ones there. I love the regional assistants. I love the other towns coming in and providing what additional support they can as well. Brenda was there. We were on with the Emergency Operations Center, almost immediately. And I'll tell you, how that works. That works with Garrett Eucalito and his team from DOT, Department of Transportation. They have to go out there. They have to check the roads. They have to check the bridges for safety, make sure going forward, as you heard from George and otherwise, when you see those yellow cones, stop. You may say, oh my gosh, look at that road. It looks like it's okay to me. I don't see much water. There can be a culvert under there. Water can be going under there. That thing can go anytime. Please pay special attention there. Katie and our group at Deep, they're taking a special look right now, checking all the different dams. Make sure those dams are holding. Right now, as you heard from Katie, those dams are holding. We've got them reinforced a lot since 1955, and able to keep us safe. We were there, Brenda, with public health. Why is public health there? Well, they got to pay special attention to our nursing homes, special attention to our hospitals, those most at need, most vulnerable. We're there, obviously, with Eversource and UI. Make sure the electricity is on. Where do we have the most needs? Make sure that we can respond accordingly. And I'm really proud that we've been able to work very closely with the legislative delegation you have here, fighting every day for this community in this region. And I got to say the same thing for our federal delegation. Senator Blumenthal is here. As we are filing for our emergency declaration. Make sure we get to the front of the line. Make sure that front of the line means we get every resource we can to make sure that Oxford and neighboring towns can get back on their feet. It also, as Garrett tells me, accelerates the permitting process. So if we have to do any special repairs to, say, those bridges or dams, we can get to the front of the line there as well. And we are trying to think down the road in terms of resilience, what we can do to make sure this is a lot less likely to happen again. We have plenty of time to discuss that, but right here now, I just want to thank the people standing behind me, thank those first responders. Our hearts goes out to those that lost their lives, and we're doing everything we can to make sure. I can't tell you this will never happen again. I can tell you we're going to make sure that we make it less frequent and make sure it's less severe, and that's something we're working on every day. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Governor, was enough done to alert people in advance? And I'd like to ask George that, too.
Yeah, if you don't mind, there are a couple of things I forgot. You may not know about our town. Let me tell you about our town. Since we had this problem, I can't tell you how many private citizens called and requested that they help out any way that we can. Well, of course, right now is not the time to do it, but that's Oxford. That's the way they are. And there are a few people here when you all leave, we're going to have to do the very difficult work of getting back to normal. One of which, one individual, Arnie Jensen, who's also on the Board of Selectmen. We'll be working together along with Dave McCain. And I want to thank my administrative assistant, Kristen Rosa. She did a great job during this. And, of course, Scott Pelletier, who is our emergency services coordinator. He did a wonderful job. And Jim Haliva, who has to put together the bills, and hopefully we get it paid.
Is there any more information on the unfortunate situation with these two women? Were they in a car? Do you have any information on how?
Yes, it appears that they were both in a car. Is that correct, Scott?
Correct.
Okay.
And how
And
did
wait,
I just want to find out how were they recovered, because we heard one was recovered earlier this morning and then one in the afternoon, so.
I don't know. Scott, you want to come up and answer that question?
Okay, the two parties that were swept away by the rising water, one of them was earlier in the afternoon. Firefighters were on scene attempting to get the victim from the vehicle. When a rash of water came in, the vehicle shifted, the firefighter fell down, the victim fell down, got swept down the river. A second firefighter trying to attempt that rescue went down. The other firefighters removed them from the water and got them to safety. One of them is treated for some minor injuries and is okay today. The second victim was in a vehicle, climbed out, and tried crossing the water, made it to a sign, and was hanging onto the sign. Firefighters were in there with a high-wheel vehicle trying to get to her, and the racing water was too much for her, and she got swept away.
forgive me for my confusion, so these three people were not together, two were together?
Two separate incidents, two female victims.
And is there any concern with some of the water that's now in the area to homes or businesses because of the flooding? Are you concerned about it?
The health department has been out, going to be checking the area, Deep's in the area on scene, because most of the homes that have been flooded have oil tanks in them. We've had dozens of propane cylinders floating down the river leaking. We've been trying to retrieve them and secure them as best we can. We've currently completed the recovery of the two victims today, early this morning, and a little while ago. So that has been taken care of. The state police are taking care of the investigation and notifying everybody on that. And we'll continue to monitor the situation and assist any residents in any way they can.
Just to be clear, are there any other ongoing rescues or search for people that may be trapped in their homes at this time?
No, we've checked everybody that's called in. We've been to everybody that called, checked. Everybody is safe at this time. We have no additional requests for rescue.
George, was there enough done to alert the people in advance of this yesterday? How do you think about that?
Well, I don't think there was enough advance notice. We get, every year we get probably 30 of these flash flood warnings. And as a result, most people ignore them. And, you know, this didn't seem like any different than any others. As soon as I was aware of that it was going to be a problem, though, we went out and fought it. The firemen were out there. So, it just came upon us like lightning. You know, as you said, 6 inches an hour. That's that's not expected here.
We also saw some houses near Lake Zor and the dam. Are there a lot of homes that have been damaged? And I think you mentioned early on the insurance. Really, people don't necessarily have life insurance in that.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a problem. But there was damage to homes. I know of one where the foundation collapsed, and they had to go to to stay in a hotel. So, unfortunately, there was that. On the issue of safety of water, I got a text from George Logan from Aquarian, and there was damage to their equipment. However, it has no impact on the quality of the water, and they will continue to provide water as needed. So that I wanted to get that straight.
Just one home was evacuated?
I'm sorry?
How many evacuations do you have? How many?
You know, that's hard to say because a lot of people were evacuated by their neighbors. But the evacuation at Jackson Cove was the one I was most concerned with because it involved kids. And, you know, they did a beautiful job on that, you know, getting them out of there. But we had people in Quarry Walk that were stranded, and Tom Haynes very graciously allowed these people to go into the apartments and the rec area there. So, you know, that was fine, but, you know, everybody's back, so.
Can we talk about the collaboration a little bit? Obviously, there were a lot of, and Chief Public Hearing, this is more of a question for you, which is there were so many different agencies that came into Oxford to assist. Can you talk about that collaboration?
Yeah, that's part of our standard mutual aid understanding and agreement that we have with all our local partners and the state partners. We had assistance from the Beacon Falls Fire Department because of the way the water was coming. We were cut off from getting to the south end of town, so they came in and were able to assist there. We had the Seymour Fire Department came in to assist with us on a rescue over on Route 34. We had to rescue an individual from his home. They used boats and got them out. We had the USAR team was the one that went and performed the rescue of the civilians at Jackson's Cove, and that's one of our regional assets. Southbury has been hit pretty hard with water issues too. They had some regional assets there, and when we were running at the height, they were low. They sent some of those assets to us, and we were able to completely do everything we needed to do and get everybody safe. And we were able to shelter anybody that we evacuated from cars or buildings in our 3 fire stations. And as the selectman said, we were able to utilize Quarry Walk. We had 140 people that couldn't go anywhere. The roads were washed, you couldn't go. So Tom Haynes did shelter them in his apartments. The daycare that was there opened up, and we put families in there with the kids. And our Market 32 partners fed everybody, fed the firefighters, fed all the families, and it was a good collaborative effort between everybody. Our Public Works going side by side with us, getting roads open, Eversource, you know, getting power cut down so we can get into places. So it works as a collaborative effort. It's a lot of stuff that happens at once, and you know the volunteers they did a great job getting everything done and getting everybody safe. The unfortunate is we did have 2 fatalities.
Just to clarify, are you guys under a state of emergency, or is there a disaster declaration officially been declared?
Town of Oxford, the first selectman declared a state of emergency at 6 p.m. yesterday.
Is there any assistance going to be brought in for these first responders? Obviously, that's a very, you know, your job is to respond, but that was a very upsetting situation.
Correct. We will handle a debriefing, and we will offer any assistance if anyone needs any assistance.
There's more rain in the forecast today. How concerned are you? Some of the concerns that Commissioner Euclid laid out with debris, damage under the roadways that people can see. How worried are you about that?
We're worried about that because people do not obey anything that we put up. They don't obey the signs. They do not obey, don't drive on roads with water on them. So that concerns us. But hopefully the amount of rain that's coming will come at a moderate pace, and the basins and the rivers should be able to handle that with help, hopefully no other major issues.
Governor, the timeline between the disaster declaration and that federal money actually getting to these communities, what's the typical outlook for that? How fast do people expect to see those federal dollars come to these communities?
We have filed for the emergency declaration, and Garrett and the team right now that the weather has cleared a little bit, we're able to do a better assessment of the nature of the damage, be it to our public infrastructure, private homes, local police station here. So we'll be able to get a good bead on that and file, I think, by, you know, within a week or so. And, Ken's question about, did we do enough in terms of this warning? All I can say is I've been through a few of these. Weather predicting is not an exact science, but Brenda was saying in this case, I think National Weather Service did a pretty good job. You never know whether it's going to be 6 inches over 3 hours or 6 inches every hour for 2.5 hours. And this was as severe a storm as we can remember. These rain bombs are sudden and they drop hard. And we got text messages out to all the people in these local communities. That doesn't work for everybody. You have a senior or somebody who's maybe not connecting that way, reach out to them and do what you can as well. But I think the response was pretty good. But you know what we do now? We debrief and see how we can do it better next time.
Let me just add a word on to Mike's question about the timing of the federal declaration. The way it works, as the governor described it, is the governor takes the first step, files for an emergency or disaster declaration, and then it is reviewed by FEMA. And we got to present evidence. We can't just say, give us the money. And we have begun documenting. I did this morning, taking photographs in Seymour. That kind of devastation is similar to what happened when Connecticut was struck by the microbursts. You may remember Brookfield, Hamden, the Danbury area, where the disaster, in effect, was targeted. You could drive down a street, and one side of the street was devastated, the other was untouched. But we got the kind of help that we needed. I would say it is probably a matter of weeks, I hope not months. We're going to push very hard. I met with business people this morning who are shut down. As Susan asked, what happens to those businesses? They are closed. They are unenterable by order of the local health authorities because they are a real and present danger. There are propane lines that have to be secured. There are other kinds of utility and power lines that have been severed. The ramifications here are not just what you see. They are literally underground everywhere all the time, and that's why the federal declaration has to be pursued as soon as possible. And I think the state has always done a really good job of documenting, collecting evidence, and I can tell you our delegation is going to be laser focused. We're going to be on this quest full-time right away.
Senator, FEMA has said that it's already run out of disaster relief funding for this year, for the second year in a row. So where is this money?
They're going to find more. The nature of emergency relief and disaster aid is you find it. They have found it for other communities and states. They're going to find it for Connecticut.
For the homeowners and businesses, how much does federal aid cover? The federal assistance, how much does it cover?
That will have to be determined, but there are specific criteria. It isn't necessarily the cosmetic repairs, more structural, and it can be part of what the municipality requests. So we're going to be as broad as we can possibly be in collecting damage relief for businesses and homes as well as municipalities, even though it is more difficult to cover those kinds of costs.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Good job. Commissioner?
Hundreds of millions of dollars. I have a question for the fire chief
I was in Seymour before I came here.